Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Wolfman, number 2 would be Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, number 3 would be Mufasa the Lion King, number 4 would be Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and number 5 would be NOS Veratu. And holy fuck, I only got 1 out of 5 of my predictions right. For this weekend, some of you got a little bit closer than I did, but nobody got a complete 5. I was completely blindsided by this because I was going into my predictions with the, thinking back on like how well like recent comedies have done, especially if, the actors aren't necessarily like big name like movie stars. Not to suggest that Keke Palmer or SZA don't have like any kind of following or anything like that, but it just seemed like, everything about the movie, it just seemed like it wasn't marketed that much. It just seemed like the kind of movie that would not even crack the top 10. It would be another comedy flop. But lo and behold, one of them days got to number 1 at the box office, a movie I didn't even predict, and I think I even mentioned it at the end of the last video, like I just don't think it's going to make it, and here it is. Completely took me by surprise. When I saw this in the theater, I think I was even surprised when I walked in and there was like quite a few people in there, and I was like, okay, we might actually have something, especially, when you watch the movie and you can kind of feel the audience kind of getting into it as well. At least that was my experience, so I was very glad to see that. It has made $11.6 million. So this is a very dry, kind of like slow, kind of January weekend here. And I'm not even sure what next week is going to look like. I'm just going to say that right now. It really could go any way. It'll be interesting to see what movies people will pick for that, because it could be anything, but none of them's a surefire win. So, not like this is like a fantastic number or anything like that, like a record breaker for January, but it is enough to squeak into the top spot. We'll talk about what it beat out for number 2, and it's only on a budget of $14 million, so they need to get to at least 28 to double that. For our show's standards, be considered a success, this. Domestically, I think like with the positive word of mouth that audiences have had, and the fact that, people have been talking about how it's kind of a little surprising that it managed to get to number 1. Like, people didn't see that coming. People thought for sure it was going to be Wolfman, right? I think that could lend itself into like getting there domestically, and then we'll see if any worldwide totals come in. So yeah, just I completely underestimated this movie, and I try to make these predictions, and it's always, you never quite know what's going to happen, right? But man, I really wish I didn't underestimate it so much, especially after seeing it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good. So go check it out. Let's see how much more money this thing can make. Let's double this budget, baby. It's not that large. Number 2 is Mufasa the Lion King. So one of them days squeaked by Mufasa the Lion King by 0.1. It made 11.5 this weekend, which is crazy. They were that neck and neck. Especially in this case, because Mufasa's like a bad movie. One of them days can't be like neck and neck with like something good. Come on, man. Anyways, Mufasa is now sitting at $205 million domestically in total. So it's $338 million away from the 2019 film. Worldwide, it is sitting at $588 million. So that places it $1.073 billion away from the 2019 one. I'm sorry, I have to keep being petty and only talking about the stats for this because it's the only ones I care about. It's $12 million away from tripling the initial production budget of $200 million, unless it's more than that. But I think at this point, since it's about halfway to $1 billion, they've probably broken even somewhere. Like we've been discussing, like it was always going to be fine. The goal for me, at least, because I'm a big hater, right, is that this would have flopped, and then Disney has to once again rethink their entire strategy for everything. Unfortunately, I think I even saw something. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last video or not. I think I even saw something where it seemed like they were trying to work on another one of these live-action Lion King spin-offs, which, okay, sure, what, are we gonna get the fucking Zazu origin story? Like, there's another origin story for fucking Zazu or something like that? Or are we gonna get, like, the Timon and Pumbaa backstory from Lion King 1.5? We'll just see that, but they'll make it longer and more boring. I don't know. Anyways, I have nothing else to add. Let's just jump into number 3, the other new release this weekend, Wolfman. Now, Leigh Whannell's Invisible Man did really well at the box office, and usually a Blumhouse production can do well, especially, in January, one of these dry weekends. I'm honestly pretty shocked that this one didn't at least, like, open big. It made $10.5 million. That's pretty low, all things considered. I'm not sure if word of mouth is what got to it first. Like, I know the Rotten Tomatoes scores are kind of negative on both sides, but kind of more in the mixed area. Maybe just the trailers didn't win that many people over. Either way, yeah, this is not a great opening worldwide. It is sitting at a total of 15 million, but this is on a budget of 25. And I feel like, you know, in order to look at this weekend and go, they're off to a solid start, is if it did have like a good response to it. And I feel like most people's response is either just kind of like a big shrug or like, no, it was fine. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's quite enough to get the momentum, but we'll see. Obviously, we talked about earlier, next weekend's another unpredictable weekend where there's not really a clear winner, and I don't know how much interest is in any of those movies coming out, so we will see. For opening weekends for Lee Winnell, 6 million over Upgrade, but 12 million below Insidious 3 and 18 million below The Invisible Man. Obviously, we mentioned Invisible Man did really well. This is a very much so step down from The Invisible Man's run. It needs 1 million until it outgrosses the entire domestic run of Upgrade and also worldwide, so that's where it's at currently. Bit of a bummer start, but, you know, look, you know, consensus, it seems like, is that a lot of people are just kind of like mixed kind of indifference. So, I mean, this is just kind of what happens, you know. Number 4 is Sonic the Hedgehog 3, making 8.6, adding to a domestic total of 216 million. We talked about recently how, you know, it's now the number 2 highest grossing video game movie domestically. So there's no way it's ever going to outgross Mario, but it's always fun to just, you know, check in. It needs 358 million until it outgrosses that film. Worldwide, it is sitting at 419 million, so they have outgrossed Uncharted by 19 million and Sonic 2 by 14. So not only is it now the highest grossing Sonic film domestically and worldwide, but it now sits behind Rampage by 8 million as far as video game worldwide runs, which places it in the top 5. It is the 5th highest grossing video game adaptation worldwide ever. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's the thing, is that if you look at the numbers, overall Mufasa, you know, is the clear one ahead, right, as far as the overall gross. But as far as like which one is probably profiting more, the lower budget one, yeah, that's a safe bet. The one that domestically is still slightly ahead, and also the one that is like continuing to break records, whereas the Mufasa one is just kind of like, you know, it kind of just boring, you know what I mean? It's not exciting to talk about that. Anyways, number 5 is Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. This one not really holding over as well as I kind of thought it might. Actually, yeah, kind of like a pretty drastic drop. All these other movies that have beat, now it's just slipping ahead, right? Anyways, made 6.6, adding to a domestic total of 26 million. Still needs 18 million until they outgross the original film. Worldwide, it is sitting at 31, so 49 million away until they outgross the original film overall. So yeah, I would say if they manage to hold over well in this second weekend, I would say they're probably on track for it, but now I'm not quite sure. I know O'Shea Jackson Jr. was saying how much he'd like to keep making more of these Thieves movies, but I don't know. Like, it took 7 years for the last movie, but, you know, it was built on the foundation of it did solidly in theaters for the budget it had, for the kind of attention it got, and hopefully they can build that audience. Maybe 7 years was just too long a wait, you know what I mean? It just seems like a lot of people are kind of forgetting about this one. If it rebounds, then, you know, great. It just does not really seem like it. And once again, I think, you know, the word of mouth on this, there have been people that have been enjoying this, but I don't think it's enough to really convince people like, oh, maybe I should watch the first movie and then go check this out, you know? Anyways, number 6 is Moana 2, making 6.06 million, adding to a domestic total of 442 million. It still needs 35 million until it outgrosses Frozen 2 for Disney Animation. And then for the year 2024, still stuck behind Wicked by 22 million. Although, you know, we've been saying that, how like it just seems like Moana 2 probably won't catch up. But I mean, we'll talk about Wicked in a second. Now Moana 2 has kind of gained a bit of a significant lead as far as the domestic intake. And since Wicked is available on video on demand right now, you know, it seems like, well, shit, they might have kneecapped that kind of lead that they had against Moana 2, at least domestically. You know, worldwide it was never going to win, but domestically it seemed like there was a clear shot, and now it's just kind of like, oh, you guys kind of fucked that one, I think. Worldwide, Moana 2 did cross the billion point. It's now sitting at 1.009 billion. You know, good on them, I guess. It needs 26 million until they outgross Zootopia, so not making any headway there. And then another thing where it's kind of unchanged, they're still behind Deadpool and Wolverine for the overall 2024 run worldwide by 329 million. So they have not really progressed up any further, but at least they crossed a billion. I guess. Another just kind of like boring one to talk. I mean, and definitely more interesting than Mufasa as far as like, you know, Moana 2 is one of Disney Animation's highest grossing films, and it's one of the highest grossing ones of this year overall across the billing. But it's just, as far as like the movie itself, I just don't think it's worth celebrating, especially how we got to, it being a movie in the first place. So let's move on to number 7, which is NOS Veratu. Heck yeah! Making $4.3 million, adding to a domestic total of $89 million. For the horror films of 2024, it needs $16 million until it outgrosses Alien Romulus. It is still in the top 3. Worldwide, it is sitting at $155 million, so it has outgrossed Smile 2 by $18 million and needs $105 million until it outgrosses A Quiet Place Day 1. Not sure if it has the continued momentum to get there exactly, but it is in the top 3 highest grossing horror movies worldwide for the year 2024, and that is pretty spectacular. Alien Romulus, Quiet Place, and NOS Veratu. Not a bad top 3 as far as like horror films box office intake goes. This could be a lot worse. You know what I mean? NOS Veratu is obviously the best one. Number 8 is A Complete Unknown, making 3.7, adding to a domestic total of $57 million. For Mangold, it outgrossed Identity by $5 million and 310 to Yuma by 4. Needs $19 million now until it outgrosses Night and Day. It looks like it's about to like just dip out of the top 10 domestically. I think I heard somewhere it did finally open up in some other places like London, stuff like that. So, maybe we'll finally see some worldwide totals at some point. I just do not have them on me at the moment. So like, I don't know. It would suck if it dipped before we could see where it was kind of standing worldwide, but that might be the case here. Number 9 is Wicked. Like we were talking about before, it used to have a tight kind of second place kind of thing going on with Moana 2, but now with the premium video on demand, I think that's definitely impacted its placement here and its holdovers. Still, though, it broke so many records and it's made so much money, doesn't really matter. Made $3.5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $464. So for musical films, it is sitting behind Frozen 2 by $13 million. So still number 3, probably not going to advance anywhere there. And then for the year 2024, it needs $172 million until it outgrosses Deadpool and Wolverine, still in the top 3. Worldwide, it is sitting at $708 million. So that is $88 million away from Coco for the all-time musical lists, and it needs $6 million for the year 2024 until it outgrosses Dune 2. So that one definitely seems, very possible, obviously. I think they have the momentum for the combined totals worldwide to outgross Dune 2 there, and then finally it'll crack the top 5 for highest grossing runs of the year. I just don't know if it'll still be here next weekend when we have some other movies slipping in, so we shall see. But still, what a great run. And then finally closing out the video, number 10, Baby Girl, making $2.02 million, adding to a domestic total of 25. Worldwide only bumps up to 30 million. So 10 million shy of the doubling point standard for the initial production budget of 20 million. The doubling point, obviously, like we've discussed many times before, that's usually the show's standards for if a movie has done well. But I think in this instant, they've talked enough about how, like, it's an A24 production and they didn't have a lot of money, so I'm assuming the marketing budget wasn't too high, so this could actually be solid. Who fucking knows? Either way, it was here and now it's gone. People saw it, some people didn't. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5, and I do mean it this time. I don't know, like, Presents, as far as like my local listings, it's only playing in the AMC chain near me. Regal doesn't have anything up yet, but that could just be a thing if they haven't updated yet. But it doesn't seem like, just looking at the view seat thing, it doesn't look like many people are lining up to see that, in advance. And then you have another Angel Studios movie where it seems like that one might be taking off again. Flight Risk, Mark Wahlberg, Mel Gibson. So this might be a clusterfuck like this weekend. But either way, my predictions are that number 1 will be Flight Risk. Number 2, Brave the Dark from Angel Studios. Number 3, One of Them Days. Number 4, Mufasa the Lion King. And number 5, Wolfman. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.